Good morning. Last couple weeks, we've been preaching a homily series on our core value, unconditional belonging. For those who remember, it is our value of family that we renamed to unconditional belonging because it expresses two realities. One is unconditional love, that we love people and we accept them no matter what, as family does. And number two, a sense of belonging, that when we're a part of a family, we have this sense that we belong to this family. There's an identity that draws us together. And so in the first homily, I spoke about the power of this value as it is lived out and how it affects our ability to fulfill our mission, but also the power of living out values with regard to a particular culture, that we want a healthy culture that fosters authentic communion with one another, where each of us know that we're known and loved. Father Joe last week spoke about how we as a parish family can more concretely live out this value at Sunday Mass. He first started talking about what this value does not mean, because we've had some people misunderstand what we're trying to say. But he also talked about different things regarding Sunday Mass, such as making sure we come to Mass every single weekend, because families spend time with one another, coming on time, pew hospitality he talked about. So when a baby is crying, not to give the mother and father a dirty look. So my question to you is, how is all this value stuff going? How are we living it out? I have to admit that this is actually difficult for me. Just the other day, during a staff meeting, Father Joe started crying and I gave him a dirty look. It's really hard for me. My encouragement, though, in all honesty, if you have not listened to these two homilies, maybe you were gone for spring break, or maybe you went to a different parish last week, I really want to encourage you to go to our website and listen to both of these homilies, because this value of unconditional belonging is something we're going to refer to often. And we want people to know the context of why we're talking about this, why we're referring to it. So please go to our website and listen to the last two homilies. This week, I was supposed to preach a third homily on this topic of unconditional belonging. But we decided to postpone part of that homily, which was a special announcement to the parish, till May. And someone came up to me afterwards and said, Father, we heard about unconditional belonging, how our core value is supposed to be lived. What's this other value of service, or I am third? I want to hear about that. So because of that, I'm going to shift gears and call an audible to preach about our value of I am third, which is that value of service. Now, the word service in Christian circles, in my mind, is one of the most misunderstood terms in Christian parlance, because often people cheapen the idea of service. The term I am third represents a Christian understanding of service. God is first. Others are second, I am third. Right? We choose to really love God first, and then love our neighbor, and then we have reference to ourselves. And to illustrate this, let's look at the life of Jesus. I mean, Jesus, everything he did out of love for the Father and obedience to the Father. It was because of the Father's will that he came to this earth to serve us in our need, to love us when we were most in need of him. His relationship with the Father, having received everything from him, is what indicated to him how he was to live as a man in this world. And so having received from the Father, he gives to us freely. And after us having received, this is what he calls us to. As I have loved you, so you shall love one another. It is precisely because Jesus has first loved us that we position ourselves to love one another. In other words, Christian service is a response to the love that God has for each of us. Now, why is that important? So what it does is it saves us from self-interested service. In other words, if my service to you is because God has first served me, I'm doing it out of gratitude and out of love, I can do it without reference to what I think I can get from you. This cheapened, counterfeit understanding of service is often what the world is caught up in. You give something to me, I give something back to you. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. I'm not going to do anything for you unless I get something out of it. It's the what is in it for me mentality that has permeated the whole world. And if we love each other based on the fact that God has first loved us, we respond in love to Him and then serve other people, it actually purifies our love and makes our love powerful. It saves us from a kind of a self-seeking that's masked as service. How many people like to serve when it feels good? I do, but sometimes service is equated to that. I'm only going to serve you when it makes me feel good about myself. Or worse yet, I'm going to serve you as a way of working out my political agenda because the problems you have need to be solved. Notice what that does. There's a very big difference between hating poverty and loving poor people. A Christian disciple recognizes the difference. One is out of this love and solicitude for those who are needy and those who are suffering, and that love and solicitude comes from an awareness of how God has first loved us. One of the paradoxes of love that I constantly talk about is that the more that we love and that we give ourselves away, the more we are fulfilled. And I want you to think about this value in terms of this acronym. Jesus, others, yourself. I am third. What does that spell? Joy. Good job. We can do that. J-O-Y, right? Joy. I am third. That means that it is out of joy that I serve, and it is in serving that I experience joy. This is really important because some of the most miserable people I know are the most self-centered and narcissistic. There's this sense in which the world is trying to achieve this happiness and this joy and this fulfillment, but they're focusing on themselves. And that is the recipe for misery because you're made for love. And so when we remember that I am third, when we remember that God has first served us and He's freed us to be servants to others, then we have what is necessary to be fulfilled if we remember that. I am third. Now, if you remember from the first homily, we talked about what a core value is. A core value basically core values are behavioral traits that are already present in our community, and they've been present for some time. The best of our staff and the best of our parishioners embody this value. They exemplify this value. And this is something that when Father Joe and I arrived to the parish, we saw very, very clearly. Not just with generosity of resources toward the mission. It's a very generous parish. But also because so many people are spending their time and their energy and their effort to serve those in need. And I can give dozens and dozens of examples. Just a couple of recent examples for me really stood out to me. I'm just going to share with you. The Advent Giving Tree. It's a service, it's a ministry that we have to serve those who do not have enough resources to have Christmas gifts. We had over 1,200 tags taken, and people buy gifts for those who do not have enough money for Christmas gifts. 1,200. Recently, the Knights of Columbus, out of their own initiative, decided to create this program called the Debt Reduction Breakfast. Right? They intentionally are spending their time and their effort to provide for the parish because they see a need and they want to serve. And dozens of nights are doing this, and they plan to do it after Lent for the rest of the year, every single month. This is service that is given because they recognize themselves as servants. As a leadership team and staff, we decided to operationalize this value so that our accountability to it is not vague and theoretical and abstract. It is very real. So what we did, we came up with a list, just like with unconditional belonging, that enables us to keep each other accountable to this value in our parish. So the first thing that we came up with was willingness to be interrupted. If I'm willing to be interrupted, that means that there's a value on your needs over mine. But if I'm working on something and I refuse to be interrupted, then my work, my job, my project is number one. So I have to be willing to be interrupted what I'm working on. The second one is willing to take initiative. When we see a problem, we try to address it. We try to talk to someone who might be able to address it more effectively than us. This is very different from the worldly, not my problem. That's sometimes how I am. Hey, look, that's not my responsibility. That's not my problem. I need to be willing to take initiative. When I see something, I have to be called out of myself to do something about it, or at least help them get to a person that can help them. The next is sacrificing for the kingdom, time, talent, and tithing. How many of you like to serve when it doesn't cost you much? I have my hand up, right? But that's not really service. That's self-interested. It's an interest group, right? Interest, right? But real service, real Christian service, is serving when it costs you. I mean, look at what Jesus did on the cross. That didn't feel good. He didn't want to do that, but he did it out of love. And so whether it's our time, our talent, or our tithing or treasure, this is what service looks like. Being aware and attentive to the needs of others, spiritual, physical, and mental. The question is, do we see those needs? Do people all around us who have all sorts of spiritual, physical, and mental needs, the question is, do we see them? The next is saying, how can I help you? I mean, just someone saying that to you, how can I help you, opens your heart to maybe they can serve me in some way. Or maybe I can be served, or maybe I can serve them in some way. And it's something that we want to inculcate in all of us. So how can I help you is a natural part of our life when we see someone in need. Remembering that we are the hands and feet of Jesus. A lot of Christians don't realize that we are supposed to be Jesus' hands and feet. It's illegal for us in the kingdom to ask Jesus to do what he has asked us to do. And if we, as Christians, understand that we have the responsibility of being his hands and feet in the world, then we look at the world very differently. Making your needs known. And this is a paradox. Part of generosity is learning to receive generosity. Part of being a servant is learning how to receive service from someone else. So part of that is, this is what I need. I need this right now. And that humility opens, paradoxically, someone else up to serving you. It enables more and more of the treasure of the kingdom, not just treasure in terms of money, but in terms of time and love, to be poured out in people's hearts and lives. And finally, staying faithful to commitments. Essentially being a person of your word. When you say you're going to serve and you're going to be there for someone, you show up and you do it. Right? 90% of love is showing up, is being present to. It is choosing to love the person in the situation in which you find them. And so it's an intentional for us to make sure that we show up. And then finally, this last one is service with a smile. So let me just ask you a question. What kind of parish would this be if every single person lived out this value of I am third consistently? It would be an amazing parish. A parish that is able to transform the culture around it. Now, one of the dangers of preaching about a parish value like this is that we can think that the parish value only is to be lived in the context of the parish itself, in the context of the church, in the context of the school, and maybe parish events. But the fact of the matter is that while it's important for us to do ministry and service together, that we can do things together that we can't do outside of or by ourselves, and that's critically important. While that's important, this value of I am third needs to permeate everything we do. It needs to become a lifestyle, because this is inherently a Christian worldview and how we are supposed to live as disciples of Christ. So let me take, for example, family life. I am third in family life. Maybe you're a mother or a father who works very hard to provide for your family. Maybe you work extra long hours. Maybe you get exhausted with watching all the kids that you have, doing all the things that your kids need, whether it's sports practices or running them around, or maybe you just sometimes feel overwhelmed with family life. Remember, I am third. Christ gave his life for me to serve me and to love me. I choose to love my family. I am third. But what about work life? Maybe you're a doctor, you're a teacher, you work in customer service, or you work in an office somewhere, or maybe in manufacturing. To look at your co-workers as the people that you serve, to remember that no matter where you are, no matter what you do, you are a disciple, and you are third. You're not number one. That changes the way that we see things. And in a certain way, it makes us realize that our intentions and our motives are very important when we do what we do in our life. I mean, when we recognize that we are third, then when we encounter a family member who's very difficult to love, has anyone been there? When we encounter a coworker or a boss who's very, very difficult to work with or to serve, we can actually do that for the love of Jesus. We can say, Lord, I choose to serve this person for your sake. I choose to love this person out of love for you because I am third. And you know what that does? It changes the way we love the person. Our love is no longer conditional on them treating us well. It becomes more pure. And when it becomes more pure, we see a greater effect of our love. And as John of the Cross says, where you do not see love, put love, and you will draw out love. In other words, the more you love like Jesus, the more transformative your service is for them. But what it also does, it enables us to love Jesus more. We fall in love with Jesus more because we're doing all these acts of service for love of Him. And it changes the way that we experience love. This is how, as Catholics, we can grow in holiness. And let me just say this one thing. Christians who are in love with Jesus are far less likely to have ulterior motives when serving other people. Let me repeat that. People who know the extent to which Jesus has served them are far less likely to serve people for selfish or ulterior motives. And when a world sees that, they're going to want to know who Jesus is. As a parish, I want to be very clear that all of us are challenged, or I should say, I'm encouraging you to challenge each other gently on living out this value, not only in the parish, but in your family life. And I'm going to say this, putting myself out there, as priests and staff, we should be living this out better than everyone. We are supposed to be examples, supposed to be leaders in this. So I encourage you, if you see a staff member or me or Father Joe not living out this value, I want to encourage you to come to us personally and out of love, share that with us. Anonymous letters don't count. That's an example of I am first. I'm just joking. But I mean, seriously, we really, really want to know because we want to live this out. And I want to encourage you to continue to challenge each other in this because of this. Everyone in your life is more important than you. Let me repeat that. Everyone in your life is more important than you. And the God who gave Himself to you by the blood of His Son on the cross is more important than everyone else in your life. And when we understand that, when we allow that to permeate our consciousness as Christians, then the lost and the broken and the people who have left the church and people who do not know God's love will see something of a divine image in us, and they will want to know the very God that we claim has the power to save. If we live this value out as a parish and continually to call each other out on this and to encourage each other and to celebrate when we live this out, then there will be great hope for Brighton, because we will be the ambassadors of Christ.